In Australia's roaring 20s, those with a passion for racing gathered at Kalgoorlie's Lake Perkolilli to put their machines to the test. The dry claypan racetrack was reasonably popular among locals and enthusiasts. But it was this car that emerged to claim worldwide fame and glory and put Perkolilli on the international map. The car was called Silverwings. On August 27, 1927, the Chrysler Silverwings smashed the 24-hour speed endurance record, covering 1,607 miles in 784 laps, in a time of 14 hours, 35 minutes. It was a feat that made the Chrysler name famous across the country. 70 years along, another Silverwings has been reborn to recreate that moment of glory. Her new owner, Graeme Cocks, was inspired by the legendary automotive champion and spent the last 3 years searching the world for original parts in order to bring her back to life. It has been a labour of love.
The greatest pleasure was firing it up and actually hearing all of that noise for the first time. That was fantastic. And yeah, you can never beat that.
Graeme Cocks was so inspired by the record-breaking run at Lake Perkolilli that he wanted to recreate the scene 70 years down the track. Restoring the vintage racing car, he brought her back to peak condition with the intention of once more bringing Silverwings to the Kalgoorlie dry lake. As he restored the car, he arranged for a reenactment day at the lake and invited several other vintage racing cars along to join in. The still morning air of a sunny Perth suburban car park is shattered by the roar of the vintage Chrysler engine as Silverwings is taken through her practice paces. Making a few laps of the car park, Graeme proved that Silverwings was up to the task. Cooling the engine of the powerful race car, there was time for a last-minute inspection, and then Graeme Cocks and Silverwings were ready. Before leaving for Kalgoorlie, Silverwings made her grand entrance at Woodbridge House to be greeted by enthusiastic applause and the good wishes of spectators. Graeme circles the driveway in a lap of honour before greeting the crowd.
The job was to research the history of Silverwings. This, I think, was the most exciting part of the project. I slowly tracked down the descendants of the people who put Silverwings together. And the more I found out about the car, the more fascinated I became about the events of the period and the strange links that this car had with all of us. So I got to that stage. I had a history of the car, but not the car itself. And getting a car to restore was difficult. And I hadn't been able to track down the original Silverwings at all, and maybe someday somewhere Silverwings is out there, but I couldn't find it. What I did find was a 1928 Chrysler, which was used as a fruit picker's truck up in the hills, and that's what this one was when I found it. And if you look at the photographs and that, this is all it was. This is what the condition of the car was like. So we didn't have a lot to start with. And the more restoring of Silverwings I did, and the more I found out about Lake Perkolilli. And few people have ever heard of Lake Perkolilli, but from 1911 to 1939 it was the major racing track in Western Australia and the fastest racetrack in Australia because of the hard-baked surface. What amazed me was that people like Arthur Colliver, Dick Kinnear, Billy Atwood, they were true pioneers. And to get a car like this going and to create such records with it, they really had a pioneering spirit. And I hope that this car reflects a bit of the pioneering spirit of those people, because when you drive it and the noise it makes and everything, you really get a feel for what they did in those days.
I'd like to present Graeme with just a little thing that they used to have on their pockets. I've tried everywhere to get Felix the cat.
In February 1927, Charles Lindbergh, who was the first man to fly solo across the Atlantic, put a Felix the Cat mascot, a Felix the Cat soft toy with him on his plane when he went across the Atlantic. So obviously they'd cottoned on to the adventuring nature of Charles Lindbergh and decided that they'd have a Felix the Cat mascot on their car, and that's how Felix the Cat. And in all the old photographs, there's always this Felix the Cat mascot on the radiator of the car. So maybe that's the reason.
Silverwings, Joe Cordo's 1916 Hudson Boattail Special and Trevor Eastwood's 1932 Ford Special rumble through the streets of Kalgoorlie, turning quite a few heads on their way. It's a grand parade up the main street for these vintage races, and they make the most of it. After all, it's not every day that history is recreated. For Silverwings, it would almost have been like coming home.
Good for the microphone.
The racing cars gather outside the town hall for a final checkover before heading towards the racetrack. Locals and friends admire the cars, an impromptu display of historic motoring technology.
That's the girl.
Lake Perkolilli is no longer used as a racetrack. Technology has long since surpassed the dry dirt surface that was once the fastest in the country. There's no sign of the racetrack that once circled the lake, and bushes have now covered much of the surface. But the Royal Aero Club of Kalgoorlie have cleared a track for the event, and there's a growing sense that this was once a great place, a place where thousands gathered to celebrate motor racing. The cars drive out onto the lake bed for the first time in procession, followed by John Lillig's 1960 Rickman Matisse motorcycle. Silverwings doesn't waste any time and heads for the track, giving the surface a tentative testing to make certain that everything is right for the day. The other cars join in, cautiously exploring the terrain.
Driving it very gently. This is somebody driving somebody else's car.
Back at the campsite, spectators and enthusiasts settle in.
We've got no spark in the magneto, so we don't normally take bikes to pieces at the racetrack because we're so far from Perth. We're going to fix it today so we can have a run.
Stepped out of an R.M. Williams catalogue.
Just stepped out of Lake Perkolilli. Like proper racing drivers, we've just walked the track.
Oh, yeah. Where did you find it?
We found the old grandstand and
You did?
numerous camping areas.
The formal proceedings will soon be starting. There's quite a respectable little crowd here.
spread along. Some of the people have come out to drive and enjoy themselves driving, and there are others who have just come out for the spectacle. Over here, Graeme has set up a picture board, some pin-up boards with photos and various items about the history of this racing area and the car and the work that he's done on the one that he's rebuilt.
Celebrate the 70th anniversary of a run on Lake Perkolilli by the original of this car. This is a reconstruction of the original car. So it's got none of the original pieces. But on August the 18th, 1927, Arthur Colliver and Billy Atwood, along with the mechanic Dick Anea, came out here to see if they could break the Australian 24-hour and 1,000-mile speed records. They were successful. They did break the record, averaging around 70 miles an hour in a car just like this. And so they broke first they broke the 1,000-mile record, then they broke the 24-hour record. And in the history of Lake Perkolilli, that really changed the scene here. It got international coverage, this record-breaking attempt, and it really put Perkolilli on the map. And they kept the car here for 2 weeks for the state championships, which were 2 weeks after their event during the Kalgoorlie Cup racing round. They kept it here. They took the headlights off the car, took the running boards off that I'm standing on, and then entered it in the state championships, and they got it up into the high 70 miles an hour then. And so within 2 weeks they'd won the state championships and the speed records. The same car had been in New Zealand, had been used by Wizard Smith in New Zealand and the eastern states, and got speed records over there between Christchurch and Dunedin and Sydney and Brisbane and Coolangatta. So it was a famous car. They got this car, they took it back to Perth, ripped all of this off and put an aluminium boat tail body on it, and brought it back here and won the Australian Open Championships the next year. And they were up to 80 miles an hour plus with it then. We're represented here pretty well. Joe Cordo's got his Hudson, which is from that early period of Perkolilli. This car never raced at Perkolilli, but cars just like it did. As a matter of fact, I was reading that the Whippet, people who owned Whippet cars in Kalgoorlie, a lot of those guys set them up just like this car's set up. So you would have seen cars like this out here in the early 20s, and thanks, Joe, for bringing it up. Trevor Eastwood, thank you, Trevor, for bringing your car up. Trevor's car is styled on an Indy car from the 30s, but it's got the same power plant as the car that Ozzie Cranston drove here in the mid-30s, and he hit 111 miles an hour with his on the lake. So, we'll have first one try for that one today. You can see Perkolilli is alive and well, and hopefully we'll be able to revive a bit of the memories of those days out here today. So thank you, everybody, and let's get into it.
The formality's over. It's time to hit the track. Drivers head out onto the red dirt and put their machines to the test. It's lap after lap and smile after smile as these cars prove that they still have what it takes to be great racing vehicles. 70 years previously, driven by Billy Atwood and Arthur Colliver, Silverwings circled this track 784 times at an average speed of 66.95 miles per hour in a time of 14 hours 35 minutes. Her fuel consumption was 27 miles per gallon. Today, there's no reason to be that spectacular and enduring, but there's every opportunity for a great race.